Hello everyone, my name is Nakshatra Sari and today I will be talking about brachial plexus. The brachial plexus consists of roots, trunks, divisions, cords and branches. Now let us take a look at the arrangement of the brachial plexus. So we have the roots, trunks, divisions, cords and the branches. Now let's take a look at the anatomy of the brachial plexus, starting from the roots. The roots start from spinal nerve C5 and go up till T1. This is the normal arrangements of the roots. However, sometimes we may have roots arising from spinal nerve C4 or T2. Now when C4 is present, the roots start from C4 and go up till T1. This kind of a plexus would be called a prefixed plexus. And when T2 is present, they start from C5 and go up till T2. This kind of a plexus would be called a postfixed plexus. Now that we know which roots come in the brachial plexus, let us see how these roots divide and join to form trunks, then divisions, then cords and eventually the branches. Now as we saw, roots, there are C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. Now what happens is, spinal nerves C5 and C6, both of these join to form the upper trunk. The C7 continues as it is to form middle trunk, and C8 and T1, both of these join to form the lower trunk. We have three trunks, upper, middle and lower. Now these three trunks, they will divide to form divisions. So they will form ventral and dorsal divisions and dorsal. Same for the middle trunk, ventral, dorsal, and lower trunk, ventral and dorsal. Now these divisions, they will join to form cords. Now the ventral divisions of the upper trunk and the ventral division of the middle trunk, both of these join to form what is called as the lateral cord. The ventral division of the lower trunk forms the medial cord, and the three dorsal divisions of all the trunks, they join to form the posterior cord. Now you would wonder why these cords are named as lateral, medial and posterior. This is in relation to their position with the axillary artery. Now if you have the axillary artery here, the posterior cord is present posterior to the axillary artery, the lateral cord is present lateral to the axillary artery, and the medial cord is present medial to the axillary artery. Now the lateral cord, it branches out to form the lateral pectoral nerve, the musculocutaneous nerve, and there's one more branch that we'll come to later. Now posterior cord gives out 5 branches. So 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. The upper subscapular nerve, the lower subscapular nerve, nerve 2, latissimus dorsi, which is a muscle of the back, axillary nerve and radial nerve. The medial cord, it branches out to form the medial pectoral nerve, medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, ulnar nerve, and there's one more branch. Now the branch that we have still left, it is the median nerve. The median nerve has two subdivisions. The lateral subdivision comes from the lateral cord. So you have the lateral subdivision coming from the lateral cord and the medial subdivision coming from the medial cord. So this is your median nerve, arises from the lateral cord and the medial cord. These are the different branches of the different cords. Now this is a very tedious list to remember, so we will be forming some mnemonics for this. For the lateral cord, you have, which nerves do you have? Lateral pectoral nerve, musculocutaneous, and the median nerve. That is the lateral branch of the median nerve. So that can be remembered as M, L, L or LLM, whichever is convenient for you. For the posterior cord, you have upper subscapular, lower subscapular, nerve to latissimus dorsi, axillary and radial. This can be remembered as ulnar. Now it is to be remembered that even though this mnemonic is called ulnar, the ulnar nerve as such is not present in the medial cord branches. For the posterior cord branches, sorry. And for the medial cord, you have the medial pectoral nerve, the medial cutaneous nerve of arm, medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, ulnar nerve, and the medial division of the median nerve. This can be remembered as M for U. So this is M4, which is 4 M's, 1, 2, 3, 4, and U, which stands for ulnar nerve. Now let us take a look at the branches that arise from the roots and the trunks. First we'll see the long thoracic nerve. Now it arises from the C5 to C7 nerve. So C5, C6 and C7. All of these together they form the long thoracic nerve. So here we have a branch coming from the C5, picks up a branch from the C6 as it goes. Both of these join, pick up a branch from C7. This forms the long thoracic nerve. We have the long thoracic nerve from C5, C6 and C7. Now the C5, it forms alone, it forms a branch, dorsal scapular nerve. So the branch arising from C5 root is the dorsal scapular nerve. C5, C6, C7 and C8. All of these give off small branches, and together they supply the longus scula and the scalene muscles. So these were the branches of the roots. Coming to the trunk, only the upper trunk gives off branches that supply muscles. So first one we have the suprascapular nerve, and the second branch that comes off is nerve to subclavius. Now let's take a look at clinical anatomy of the brachial plexus. First, let's talk about Erb's paralysis. The site of injury for Erb's paralysis is the Erb's point, which is the junction of 6 nerves, which are C5 and C6 nerve roots, suprascapular nerve, nerve to subclavius, and the anterior and posterior divisions of the upper trunk. So basically the Erb's point lies in the upper trunk of the brachial plexus. Now the causes of this injury is the undue separation of the head of the humerus from the shoulder, which can occur during difficult childbirth, fall on the shoulder, or during anesthesia. Now the muscles paralyzed in Erb's paralysis include mainly the biceps brachii, the deltoid, brachialis, and the brachioradialis, partly the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and supinator. Now the deformity that occurs in Erb's paralysis is that the arm hangs by the side and it is adducted and medially rotated, as you can see in this picture here. The forearm is extended and pronated. Now the deformity is called as Vater tip deformity, and it is a characteristic feature of Erb's paralysis. Now what movements are lost in Erb's palsy? So abduction and lateral rotation of the arm at the shoulder joint is lost. Flexion and supination of the forearm is lost. Also biceps and supinator jerks are lost, and sensations are lost over a small area on the lower part of the deltoid. Now let's take a look at Klumpke's paralysis. The site of injury is in the lower trunk of the brachial plexus. Causes of injury may include undue abduction of the arm, as in clutching something with the hands after a fall from a height, or sometimes in birth injury. The nerve roots involved, as it is a site of injury, is lower trunk, so naturally the nerve roots involved will be T1 and partly C8. Now the muscles paralyzed are intrinsic muscles of the hand and ulnar flexors of the wrist and the fingers. The deformity that occurs in Klumpke's paralysis, which is also a characteristic sign, is the claw hand. Now what happens in the claw hand is, there is a hyperextension at the metacarpophalangeal joints and a flexion of the interphalangeal joints. Disability that occurs is complete claw hand is lost, and there is cutaneous anesthesia and analgesia in a narrow zone along the ulnar border of the forearm and the hand. Let's take a look at Horner's syndrome. Now, if T1 is injured proximal to the white ramus communicans to the first thoracic sympathetic ganglion, there is ptosis, that is drooping of eyelid, miosis, anhydrosis, and ophthalmos, and loss of senospinal reflex. This is because of injury to the sympathetic fibers to the head and neck that leave the spinal cord through the nerve T1. Lastly, let's take a look at the injury to the nerve to serratus anterior, which is also called as the nerve of Bell. Causes are sudden pressure on the shoulder from above and carrying heavy loads on the shoulder. Now, deformity that occurs here is winging of the scapula, as you can see here in the picture, that is excessive prominence of the medial border of the scapula. Normally, the pull of the muscle keeps the medial border against the thoracic wall. Disability, or what features are lost, is that there is a loss of pushing and punching actions. During attempts at pushing, there occurs winging of the scapula. Overhead abduction of the shoulder girdle is partly affected due to intact trapezius muscle. That is all for my topic brachial plexus. Thank you for watching till the end. If you found this informative, please do like and share with your friends. Thank you so much.